This is Blair Johnson, and you are listening to Proverbs 9:9 Podcast Ministry. For more information, you can visit www.fdcrockhill.org. Now a word from our high school and college pastor.
Well, hey, it's Chris, and it's great to be back with you on Proverbs 9:9. Last week, myself and some of the high school ministry guys were enjoying a trip to North Myrtle Beach for spring break. Once we arrived, we began to hear about the horrific news out of Rock Hill, which is where we're from, when a grandfather, a grandmother, and two of their grandchildren, along with two HVAC maintenance technicians, were murdered at their home. Such violence and destruction, and the question is, for what? Nobody knows, but the truth is this. It doesn't matter for what. Nothing could have warranted what happened. See, we live in a world that has not become what it was intended to be. And I don't know if you ever heard that before, but I want you to hear it today if you haven't. We live in a world that has become what it was not intended to be. God never wanted death, violence, anger, prejudice, hatred, or pride to be the norm. The world he created was supposed to be a paradise, life and life abundantly. However, man said this, and you may have said it before, I've said it before, you know what, I don't need God. I can do this on my own. I can do this without him. And the truth is, there were some consequences to this kind of mentality. Suffering and death. The Bible says in Romans, for the wages of sin is death. Satan is a sneaky being. While we were at the beach on last week, we decided to take a fishing charter. It was myself, 4 of our high school students, and the gentleman who owns First Response Fishing Charters. We took off and we cruised 20 miles out of Murrells Inlet to a place called Tabletop. And while we were out there, we were just going to do some bottom fishing. The water was about 60 degrees. So we landed in our spot. We dropped our bait, and in that process, for a couple hours, we were pulling up red snapper, we were pulling up triggerfish, we were pulling up what they call a junk fish in the ocean that feeds on the bottom. It's a spot, very meaty, strong-feeling fish, but has human-like teeth. It's very weird. If you ever go out bottom fishing on the Atlantic, go look for some spots. They're very different looking. But as we finished up and wrapped up our bottom fishing 20 miles out, we began to cruise back in, hitting the top of the waves at about 25, 30 knots. And as we were coming back in off our starboard side, we heard this loud noise. Matter of fact, the owner of the boat, which was a brand new boat, thought his hull was coming apart. I turned my head to the right and I looked, and as I did, there was an F-16 from the Air Force that had dropped down out of the sky somewhere, flying about 100 foot off the deck. And as he was going from our starboard side to our port side, for those that maybe didn't serve, from our right to our left, he tilted the plane 90 degrees so that when he passed the bow of our boat, we could see what was going on in the cockpit of that aircraft. It was amazing. He flipped it back on its belly, and as he did that, he turned it vertical and put the jets on, and man, he was gone. He was gone 30,000 foot, out of sight, out of mind. And then right behind him, his buddy decided to do the same thing, but this time we had a clearer view of what was going on because we were expecting it this time. We weren't expecting it that first time. One of the neatest moments of my week, that week for sure. But then it reminded me, as quick as that jet came and left, so can Satan in our lives, whether we let him or not. Back to Rock Hill and many other places around the world that you and I know of where bad things happen. And here becomes the question, what good can come from something like this? The book of James tells us, consider the trials and the challenges that come our way to be a gift. A gift? Why a gift? Well, because under pressure, when the walls of faith are squeezed in, our faith, it comes to light. Think of it like an ice cream, those popsicles that you put in the freezer, and you freeze them, you cut the top off, and you squeeze the popsicle out, or like sour cream that comes now in tubes, and you can squeeze it to the top. As you put pressure on that outside wall, what's inside comes out. And so it is with these tragedies and things that happen in our life. They test our faith. They squeeze on our faith. And when it squeezes, our true faith is going to rise to the top. But here's the other thing. When it comes out, it becomes visible to many others. And so when it does, this works in our lives to bring about a spiritual maturity. It also allows us to see Christ more clearly. Remember in the story in John about the blind man? When he asked Jesus why he was blind, Jesus responded, so that you can see who I am. See, even in the bad, God can be glorified in who he is. So how can we be strong when it seems like the world around us is falling apart, when all these tragedies and all these things that you and I know about that either personally impact us or that we see on the news, how can we be strong in the middle of that? One writer puts it this way: when life is difficult, we look to God and we find out that he has grace. In 2 Corinthians 12:9, Paul writes that this grace is sufficient for you, for his power is made perfect in our weakness. First, we must give our situation and life to God. This is the hardest part because we feel more secure when we think we're in control of things. I used to fly a lot. I'd get on the plane on Monday, get off on Friday, and some flights were smooth as silk. You'd get on them, sit down, fall asleep. You'd wake up when you're landing. Never knew you were in a plane. But I've been on some of those flights, maybe like some of you have, that when you get in, you take off, and you start passing through the clouds, you start feeling like you're riding down a South Carolina road. I mean, you're getting bumped all over the place. Your feet tend to tense up. Your hands maybe want to come together and start rubbing themselves, or maybe they want to grab a hold of the armrest on the seat, and they begin to tense up as well. And you're wondering, man, how bad is this flight going to be? Then I start thinking, well, I bet if I was behind the controls, if I was the pilot, it wouldn't seem near as bad as it does because I'm riding in the back. See, the hardest part about giving our situation and our life to God is we feel more secure when we think we're in control of things, but in all actuality, we're not. And once we give these things over to him, he's going to give us the ability to stand up and to endure. So no matter where Satan has snuck up on you or what he has used to rock your world today, yesterday, or will tomorrow, may you find the peace and grace that only comes from the relationship with the Father. Until next time on Proverbs 9:9, I hope you have just an amazing week.